and welcome back to radtechstudio, your one-stop shop for everything radiography. Today we're going to be covering one of the most important concepts in radiography, and that is mAs, or mAs. Now, mAs is one of the main technical factors that we have to set to get an X-ray exposure. mAs is really the product of two different factors, mA, which stands for milliamperage, and S for seconds. Let's take them one at a time and try to get a good understanding of each. So amperage is really a measurement of charge. So it's literally the number of electrons that pass by a specific point every second. So to make things simple, the more electrons that pass through your X-ray tube, the more X-ray photons you're going to produce. It's a direct relationship. And then the prefix milli just means 1/1000th. Or 1 mA, 1 milliamp, is 1/1000th of an amp. Or to put it a different way, there are 1,000 milliamps in 1 amp. So the higher the mA, the more X-ray photons the tube is producing. The more X-ray photons are in your X-ray beam, the more photons are coming out of your X-ray tube. I like to think about it like a game of dodgeball. If you have a higher mA, your team starts off with more balls. And then S just stands for seconds. It's the amount of time in seconds that the dodgeball game is allowed to go on for. The longer the game, the more balls you get to throw. So if you're given the MA and the time in seconds, it's very simple to find the MAS. All you need to do is take the MA and multiply it by the time in seconds, and there you go. You have your MAS. For example, if your problem says that your MA is set to 200 and your time is 0.25 seconds, you just multiply 200 times 0.25 and you get 50 MAS. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky. If your question doesn't have the time in the seconds unit, maybe it has it in a different unit, like say milliseconds, you have to convert to seconds first. Otherwise, the formula will not work. So first you have to convert to seconds, then you can multiply it by the mA or the milliamperage, and that will give you your MAS or your mass or milliamperage seconds. So like we've just described, MAS is said to control quantity. That's because when you take a certain amount of X-ray photons per second and you release them for a certain amount of seconds, you literally get a measurement of how many photons are being produced and released during your exposure. It's a measurement of the quantity of photons, literally. Now there are other similar ways to say this. If you get a question like on a workbook or something, it might say something about how mass directly affects your density, or your patient dose, or your exposure. All of those things are correct. Each of these terms mean slightly different things, but they all go hand in hand. If you double your mass, you double your quantity, your density, your patient dose, and your exposure to the image. It's important to note that other technical factors can also affect these same outcomes, but none directly the way that mass does. So you can still say that mass controls quantity. So to summarize, mAs stands for milliamperage seconds. It's the product of the milliamperage and the time, or the seconds. Mass controls quantity. Now, it's important to choose the right amount of mass for your image. If you choose too much mass, which means that you create too many photons, then your image appears burnt and blacked out. If you choose too little mass, or you're producing too few photons, your image gets a fuzzy, noisy look, and that's called quantum mottle. As you learn more, you'll start to figure out how to balance MAS with its partner in crime, KVP, in order to produce an optimal image every time. If you found this information helpful, you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment if you have any questions or comments, or if you have any suggestions on topics that you'd like to see me cover in future videos. Thank you, and see you next time.